we're told that distance is a function of how fast you hike and how long you hike at this rate. You usually maintain a speed of 3 miles per hour while hiking. Well, we know that the actual speed is fixed. In other words, we're assuming it's 3 miles an hour, so really we're looking at the distance as a function of not how fast you hike, but how long you hike at this rate. So if I hike for, sorry, I should really be switching these. This should be time over here, and this should be distance. So just to make it a little bit easier to see, time 0 means we haven't traveled anything. 1 hour later, well, there'll be 3 miles hiked. 2 hours later, there'd be 6 miles hiked. And we notice that if we just double the time, or triple the time, that gives us the distance hiked, because each hour corresponds to 3 miles. So we could say distance is found by taking 3 miles per hour times the hours hiked. Okay, in B we want to identify the input and output variables of the function. Well, the input has to be the rate, or excuse me, the time, and the output has to be the distance, because distance is a function of time. In letter C, we want to write the verbal statement in part C using function notation for the input variable. Let T represent the input variable, let H represent the output variable. So we know that H, the distance, is equal to a function of time, or more simply I could write H of T, that H is a function of time, can be found by taking 3 times the time, which is basically just converting this verbal statement into a symbolic statement. Use the equation in part C to determine the distance traveled in 4 hours. Well, we're looking for H of 4, and that can be determined by taking 3 times 4. We have to remember this does not mean multiplication, this just keeps track of height as a function of traveling for 4 hours is determined by taking 3, multiplying it by 4, and getting 12. In part E, we want to evaluate H of 7 and write a sentence describing its meaning. Well, H of 7 is the same idea as here, except that that's after 7 hours of hiking. So 3 times 7 means we'd get 21 miles hiked. In part F, determine the practical domain and practical range of the function. Well, how long do we usually hike for? This might vary from person to person, but I'd say between 0 inclusive and 4 hours inclusive might be reasonable. And so that means, well, if he travels 0 hours, the total distance hiked is going to be 0. We see that up here. We know if we hike 4 hours, the total distance traveled will be 12, assuming the same pace. So we would write our domain is this guy, and our range is H is between 0 and 12.